I called the Monday, May 7, 2018 work session meeting of the Portsmouth City Council to order. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Clark?
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg? Here. Mr. Moody?
Here.
Ms. Simmons?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Dr. Whitaker?
Present.
Mayor Rowe?
Here. And Dr. Pat.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of City Council. The first presentation this evening is the fire station location study. Over the past 2 years, City staff have discussed with City Council some aspect of a new fire station, preferably in the Truxtun community. As City Manager working with the staff, we determined the best way to approach the need for a new fire station was to launch a fire station location study. This study examined the location, physical conditions, and operation challenges of the 8 existing fire rescue stations and how the building of a new Truxtun fire station will impact service delivery. The goal was to determine the best course of action for making changes to facilities to improve operations and provide facilities that will improve current operations and that will support the needs of the Portsmouth Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services for the next 30 to 50 years. The analysis was conducted by a team of consultants led by Clark Nexon, a national transdisciplinary firm of architects, engineers, planners, and interior designers. Tonight's presentation will provide an update on this final report. The second presentation is an update on the Circle of Sail, a project orchestrated by the Support Portsmouth Public Art. The concept plan for the Circle of Sail was presented to City Council on July 11, 2017. Tonight's presentation will provide an update on the project status. The third discussion is discussion with City Council on the City Council strategies for inclusion in the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan. City Council and the Planning Commission participated in a joint work session to discuss the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan on December the 11th, 2017. During that public work session, City Council reviewed and discussed the planning framework and initial draft strategies. Tonight, City Council, you will have an opportunity to review the suggested additional strategies to reach consensus for the inclusion in the final draft of the comprehensive plan. Mr. Bob Baldwin, Planning Director, and the Comprehensive Plan Manager, Brian Sweats, are here this evening to assist and answer any questions you may have during your review. And the last presentation is an update on the Crawford Gateway Revitalization Strategy. This strategy, presented during the City Council retreat on February 3rd, seeks to capitalize on substantial public and private investment by emphasizing the City Council's vision to provide access to the waterfront and reinvigorate downtown with substantial economic development. Tonight's presentation will provide an update on the status of each project. The presenter for this evening presentations is the City Engineer, Mr. James Wright. Mr. Wright.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. The fire station location study was led by Clark Nexon. Their team included Stewart Cooper Newell Architects and Emergency Services Consulting International. The participation of Portsmouth Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Services was critical in executing this study. Their team provided data, insight, access to their facilities, and historical knowledge for context. Most of our meetings were held at the Fire Administration. The city team included current Fire Chief, Chief Hoffler, former Chief Fire Chief, Chief Bonnet, Captain Posiak, Captain Donnie, Captain Meyer, Captain Arnold, and myself. As Dr. Pat indicated, tonight's presentation will provide an overview of the fire station location study, which examined the physical location, physical conditions, and operational challenges of the 8 existing fire stations, with the main focus being on the location of the Truxtun fire station. The Truxtun fire station has been around in discussions ever since I've been with the city, which is more than 20 years. It's been in the CIP budget since 2016. However, there's never been a detailed analysis to determine if a fire station was needed in this area. So the fire station location study methodology consisted of three main components: an assessment of the service delivery, which included response time metrics and capabilities, call volume trends, staffing, current and future traffic patterns, and other factors that would determine the optimal location of fire stations, specifically the Truxtun Fire Station. Other elements of the methodology included an evaluation of the programming at each location and a condition assessment at each location. So, to determine the impact on service delivery, modeling scenarios were used to demonstrate the effectiveness of stations based on their relative utilization, maximum travel distance, and their ability to maximize their coverage area and the number of responses to incidents. 4 scenarios were analyzed and compared. The first one was the existing condition was used as the baseline. Then the Truxtun station was added as the 9th station to see what the impact was to service delivery. Then they looked at potentially moving those stations with reconfiguring them, which didn't give much additional information. And then the last scenario involved using the data that they gained throughout the study to run another model to determine if there was any optimal location for the existing stations. So this is the baseline. So you have 8 existing stations. You have a station up on River Shore, Cedar Lane, Hodges Ferry, Victory Boulevard, Winchester, Craddock, Effingham, and Port Norfolk. And your utilization rate calls within a 4-minute predicted travel time is 97.1%. So this is the non-station scenario that adds the Truxtun station. Truxtun station's added here at C1. What you see is that the utilization only grows by 0.2%. So the result of the analysis indicates that the proposed Truxtun Fire Station has minimal impact on service delivery for Portsmouth fire, rescue, and emergency services. The 8-station model represents the ideal number of stations for current and future programming. However, the relocation of several stations should be considered when these stations reach the end of their useful service life. And here's some pictures of the inside of some of the stations, some of the conditions that you have. With that, I'll take general questions. Yes, ma'am.
So, we always hear about the train track and keeping the train line, keeping fire or ambulance from getting where they need to get. Even with that, it doesn't really change anything.
I mean, the train's not constant. It's arbitrary. So at any point in time, you have additional stations that could potentially get to it, but the train doesn't run all the time. So you may have an incident when the train's not running. The train's not an issue.
Bill?
Where in Truxtun?
The location was looked at the old Truxtun Elementary site.
So that's
was
still the prime site.
Right, we never had it.
Yes.
Has been for a number of years.
If a station were to go in Truxtun, that was the site that we evaluated.
It's privately owned.
No, it's us.
Owned by the city.
We own that now.
Yeah, that's where the school was.
The pictures you show where the existing stations are corroded, which station is that, and what is the recommendation to be the station that would come down if they were to replace one in a future year?
There are a number of stations that have some existing challenges that need some existing repairs. Those were identified. They also looked at stations that were at the end of their useful service life and how those stations could be if they could be configured at the existing site. Those sites are tight, those stations are old, and so they looked to the potential to move those sites closer inland to provide better service coverage. They also looked at the existing stations that aren't near the end of useful service life to see if there were any modifications that needed to be done for increased efficiency for programming.
Because I know 2 of the older ones are at Victory and Hodges Ferry. I know the one at Victory was there when I was like 7 years old.
Which was just 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Name the 4, Mr. Wright.
The 4 stations that they identified as being near the end of their useful service life or no longer meet the programming needs are station number 7 at Winchester, Station number 9, Hodges Ferry, Station number 10, Victory Boulevard, and Station number 11 in Craddock.
Bill, you had your hand up.
Well, we're talking about the condition, is the situation with the Effingham Station, is that been corrected?
Yes.
It's currently under works. The drainage on the outside has been fixed.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to enter into a contract to raise the slab. Once the slab is raised, we'll go ahead and do the internal repairs of the building and the workspace.
So the timeline for that?
That's already in the budget, and what is the
It's in the
time?
budget. Since the contract gets executed, you're probably talking anywhere from 30 to 60 days to raise the slab. While they're doing that, we'll prepare the contract documents for the interior repairs, and shortly after they're done, we'll execute that. And so, probably talking a 90-day construction period for the interior repairs. So, sometime towards the end of the summer, early fall, it'll be complete.
Other questions?
This one is, this has been going on for a long time about the station, and one of the things that this fails to mention is that there was another fire station that was torn down.
Where was it?
Station 6, that was at Portsmouth and Elm, and that was, close in this vicinity. So, the intent back then was when Brighton Elementary was built, that's when it was traded, and that's how long it was that it was supposed to replace Station 6 at the site we're looking at in Truxton. So actually we've been short a fire station. We're not just looking at building one now that didn't exist. It was promised and it was supposed to be built back then. So I don't know, and I've seen some other reports, from the IFF and stuff about call volume and things like that that I think we need to look at as well.
Did they?
This report did include call
Did they?
volume, distance, traffic patterns. It acknowledged that that station was there. We talked about that actually at our very kickoff meeting about how the Truxton station came into being as far as the talk. And so
Right.
all that was acknowledged as part of the study and acknowledged going into that and doing the analysis.
And that, what I was curious was, you're talking about the 4 stations that are, kind of at the end of their life, when you mentioned 7, 9, 10, and 11, where the C1, the potential Truxton station, could be, that's in close proximity to 10 and 11.
That's right.
Should we wait until one of those is unserviceable to plan to do something different, or should we be ahead of the game, if it was to build a new station that would cover one of those, and then they could close one of them instead of chicken and egg?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, what I wanted to share is that the result of this study have determined that a fire station located in the Truxton area will have minimal impact on service delivery for Portsmouth Fire Rescue and Emergency Services. The study also indicates, and the pictures have shown, that we have the 4 stations that are at the near ending of their usable or serviceable life, and they are in excess of 50 years old. What I'd like for the council to consider is that we as staff would like to take the findings from this study to run additional analysis to determine the sequential optimization for relocating an existing fire station, which would be one of these 4 that are 50 years and older. And as you can see, at the end of their life, that will provide optimal coverage for the Truxton area. If you go back to the frame where you showed the stations, I think it's one. Is that the one where?
This is the one with Truxton shown.
All right, and show the areas, or if you would go up to the thing and show those fire stations, and the fire station is one of the 4.
I can hand these out.
Yes, yeah, put that closer to them. Yes. Okay.
You want me to do it?
Yes, you can do it. And you can see it closer. So although you sit up here, he has a closer visual, so you can point to them where they can see.
What Ms. White is handing out is the optimization from the report that shows those 4. That shows these 4 stations. Once again, Hodges Ferry, Victory, Winchester, and Craddock being moved to their optimal location as they come out of service. As you see here, with your baseline is 97.1, with the addition of the Truxton station, negligible the effect, but as those stations come out of line and they move, eventually if you replace all 4, move them interior, to get to almost 100% coverage.
All of those sites.
Exactly what you were just
That's what you're saying. It would take it up to an optimal of 100% coverage.
And it's the existing 8 still remain, so they're just optimized as far as their location.
So with your direction, we'd like to do a little more analysis, come back to you, and we know that in the FY19 CIP is funding there for a fire station, but then this will give us time to come back to you and tell you where the optimal location is to have a 100% coverage.
That's great.
So there are 2 documents. It's the fire station location study, which is this larger document. And then there's the Community Fire Protection Service Performance Review for Structural Fire Protection based upon the 2015 ISO PPC evaluation, which basically is benchmarking of performance measures to help the fire department increase their public protection classification score. It's a companion document.
And we can send that document electronically to you. It's almost 170 pages. We didn't have one copied.
Why don't you do that?
We shall. We'll have that to you tomorrow.
Ray, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I don't want to be repetitive, but I guess that kind of kills some of my thoughts because that's a better plan. And as Councilman Clark said, I was just going to remind you that there was a station that was supposed to be replaced, and it's been promised over the years, but and it's just a little I'm mystified that we hadn't done a detailed analysis before now. I guess is that because we finally funded put it in the CIP that we...
I can't speak to why in the 20 years there was
We're
none.
just getting around to...
I can't.
Okay, but it's a better idea.
Yeah. I think as Mr. Wright indicated, the discussion of trucks and fire stations has been years, but there had never, ever, as you said, been a study, a detailed study done. And then we came to council, and in probably the 2016 budget, we asked and were approved for the study. We launched the study, and now we have the results of the study, instead of just doing something and we didn't have the facts.
Because I think what they based it on way back was maybe a log of the calls and the time it took to make calls when
you were coming along.
When I was on council.
Right. That was it.
Makes sense. Okay.
And we already own the land at these optimal blue spots, so...
We own the land which was designated or identified for Truxton.
We own the land for the Truxton station.
Yeah.
There's land in the vicinity of
That we own.
of the dots that you have on
On the blue dots.
on the blue dots.
Yeah.
The blue dot, it has to be 0.5 miles within that radius. So if there's not exactly at that spot, potentially there's public land available somewhat close to those locations to be able to keep that optimization in place.
For example, it's hard to tell, but I'm just guessing on what you just passed out. 11 and moving it north, that looks like the intersection of Frederick and George Washington. Is that about right?
Potentially, I think that's about right. Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes,
so
go
I'm sorry, Bill.
On the, which station does the coverage for the port? Is that Cedar?
Sorry. For the port.
The chief is here, Mayor.
Which port?
The VIG.
Could you come in?
Yes, sir.
My question is, what station does the coverage for the VIG port?
They have their own.
For the port,
Yeah.
4 goes to, the one in Port Norfolk goes to PMT, but the one on the other side of Bridge 4 and 3 on River Shore respond to that facility.
Okay, so both of them?
Yes, sir. They're both right there near the West Norfolk corridor.
Does the port pay for that?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, I'm not certain right off top whether or not they do pay fees for that service, but in similar situations, there have been either MOUs or some pilot fees that are supposed to cover it. Cover it is the question. There's supposed to be pilot fees to address some of those needs. But I want to say where there have been government facilities, if they have their own internal,
And they do.
then we may not be receiving fees for additional service.
Do they have their internal?
No, sir.
I don't think so. And I don't remember MOU unless I've forgotten it. My point is that we have an aging station in that area of coverage. I would think that we would lean on the state to give us some money for providing that service. And with all the expansion there, the service need is going to expand as well. So I think we need to get our legislative team trying to get us some money.
Okay.
They have deep pockets.
We know they do.
That's not one of the aging stations, though.
No, that's not an aging station.
Cedar's
Oh, that's
east of Maxwell.
Cedar is.
No, it was built in the 40s.
River Shore is new.
okay. Yes.
Cedar's by the library.
And
Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
It was renovated completely.
And the reason I say that, because when the Port Norfolk station was built, I know they came through with I think sizable amount of money to perhaps even pay for that construction.
That's because they wanted the land where the old one was.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
That's where the Port Authority Police Department is
But
now.
we
That's what
can't
they
be
do with that
expected to
building.
keep using all of our resources to give them fire protection, especially when the port is expanding.
Right.
So we need some money, I think.
It's a good checklist for next year's legislative.
Yeah, we definitely will begin the
Other questions for
discussion.
the chief? Now, what you would do is bring back a total optimization plan
Yes,
and the sequence of implementing them
yes,
with a rank order of what goes first, what goes second, what goes third. That's the
yes,
sequence.
yes.
For all four.
Right, and spread out over the years. That is what with your direction, we'll move in that direction.
All right. Everybody okay with that? Ray, you good? Folks down this end, Dr. Whitaker, you good? Okay.
All right. Thank you, Chief.
All right.
We'll move to the next presentation.
Here all night.
stay on up
I'm
here.
here all night. Portsmouth Public Art.
Okay, the next presentation, Mayor, members of council, is the Circle of Sail. And as you know, this is a project by Portsmouth Public Art. Last week, we met with Mrs. Vincent and another member of her organization, which she called to our attention some concerns that we needed to bring to your attention. Mr. Wright.
Okay. Support Public Art presented the concept plan for the Circle of Sail on July 11th, 2017. This concept plan for the Crawford Roundabout included the sculpture, landscaping, lighting, circular brick sidewalk, and granite markers to identify donors. Their funding included a grant from the city and $100,000 in funding from the Breeden Company. Since that time, Portsmouth Public Art has worked on several aspects of their project. They have negotiated a memorandum of understanding with the city and engaged the services of a contractor who has experience with installing similar type art in the city of Norfolk right-of-way. They have also done some preliminary engineering. Soil borings performed in the roundabout, along with the subsequent ground study, have revealed problematic results for their project. Due to poor soil conditions, the foundation for the proposed structure will require pile supports approximately 70 feet deep, the cost of which would be more than half their total project cost. Support Portsmouth Public Art has made the city aware of these issues and has indicated that they will need to revise the concept for this structure to meet the structural requirements and also to fit into their project budget. And I'll take any questions.
What was that area before that makes the soil so, I guess, unstable, not to support? Because this thing shouldn't weigh a lot, should it?
Not necessarily sure if it's particular to just specifically that area, but any areas along the waterfront, going from down there by the Navy to all the way down there to the Naval Hospital. It was backfilled with whatever was demolished. You have poor soils to begin with, a working waterfront, so it's likely you'll encounter hot spots of quote-unquote trash when you go to dig. We found all kinds of bad materials or similar conditions as we've worked our way down the seawall replacing that structure. It's hit or miss too. I could do a soil boring right here and the soils be fine. I could do one sitting where you are and it'd be trash. So it's just the nature of doing work in downtown Portsmouth.
So what are the choices?
So now that had this possible unforeseen difficulty, is that going to be a budgetary impact on the city?
In the 2018 grants through Cultural Arts, the organization received $13,500, which they pretty much have used that with the work they're doing. In this budget, they only were funded $3,000, right at $3,500. This project is supported heavily by their funding source right now, which is the Breeden Company. What they're proposing to do and asked us to consider, and that's why we're coming to council, they would like to redesign their structure, the height, the fabric, and everything, which these engineers have told them why it has why it has to be that kind of support and that deep in the ground. They are not yet designed the new whatever, and it would be a sail or a sailboat or something. So we didn't want them to go forward designing something with you all not knowing that there is an issue with what you approved in the December time frame.
Okay.
I had a follow-up. I thought when the project was initially presented that there were no city funds involved, that it was...
The support to civic organizations have, the support to public art, they have always gone in and had projects considered through the museum's organizational fund.
I'm talking about this project.
Well, this project, as with other projects they have done, that was not earmarked that in 2017 or 18 when they got the $13,000. They did not earmark it. It was for the sale. But since they have done their studies, they have indicated to the group they would like to use some of that to help the I think it's $7,500 of what they have had to do with the bore, the samples for the boring for the depth of the structure. So the city, per se, we have not. It's the arts organization with the $137,000 that they have that they give small portions to groups.
I thought it was a grant from the city.
It's called a grant, but it's
It's not city money.
It is city money, but as we presented to you and showed you, they call it a grant. Support to civic organization grants. So it uses the word grant, but it's not paid back. And this has been a practice with these grants for probably the last 10 or 15 years. And you have a copy, you have a list of all of them.
So, Dr. Patton, is the question to us either A, we pony up $75,000 for underpinnings to support that, or sit back and see if the support for public art can come back with a similar structure that doesn't carry the weight of that wouldn't require that kind of foundation.
Boring. The organization has not, in our meeting, asked the city for anything. They wanted the city to know that what they presented to you all and what the issues are to get it there. They'd like to redesign they are already talking their conceptuals, and then once they get that, and it probably would take 6 weeks or so, we come back and show you what their redesign that
doesn't
fits
require-
the amount of money that they have.
And doesn't require all that
That is
work
exactly right.
underneath. Okay.
Okay, and they are keeping the breeding company advised as they go forward. You can't talk.
The only thing, when the conversation is with them before they, start doing design, I think we all agree that we really like this design. So if there's a way for them to rescale it and adjust the weight to make it work at that location, I think I would be happy with that, even if they had to make it smaller and different material, rather than coming up with an entirely new design.
All right, we will pass that on.
All right, Bill?
I agree with that. I think we all like the design, so maybe they can just downsize it like Councilman Clark is saying.
Sale material instead of.
And they can look at other material
Smaller
that they could
scale.
have.
Yeah.
Other comments?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
What's the date of that presentation?
December.
The date of the original presentation?
You mentioned it at the beginning of
The last.
Oh, July 11th, 2017, sorry.
Okay,
All right.
all right,
You have the consensus to
yes, come back.
go back to the
That's
floor.
right, we'll meet with them and come back. All right, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, we are now at the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan. And Mayor, if you wanted Mr. Baldwin just to give you a little background
Please.
on that process, he shall.
What's before us tonight?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Simmons, members of council. Again, as Dr. Patton introduced in this topic, this was a part of your joint Planning Commission City Council meeting back in December of 2017. We were going through looking at some of the strategies that have been provided related to the vision statement. At that time, council members indicated they wanted to take a look and potentially submit some of their own strategies and ideas. And so some time was taken by individual council members to submit their suggestions. We have collected all of those. We've gone back into the document. There's a little text box in the document. We've identified the statements he received, the council member they came from, and as Dr. Patton indicated, what we need to have happen tonight is for you to go back through what's been submitted and hopefully reach consensus on those things so we can move forward with our drafting of the plan document. So that's pretty much straightforward. Kind of go back through what you submitted and just let us know what it is you, if it's all of it, some of it, whatever you would like to do with those items in there.
Okay. When would you like it back?
Tonight, if possible.
Tonight. This is a work session.
Yeah.
You got bacon and eggs
I
ordered?
think that's,
No, you all got to talk about it.
Some 20-odd boxes that you want us to take a look at.
Right. However you would like to do it. All I'd like to say is this. This is the holdup now in our production schedule. So if you want to take some time to read it and come back, we just ask you to do it very quickly because this is, in fact, become our text writing roadblock, so to speak. Not put any pressure on you. But this is kind of where we are in the process. So if you'd like us to come back after you've had a chance to kind of go back through that, we certainly can do that.
I was going to ask, can we get beyond this budget and come back to this after after tomorrow, something like that?
sounds good to me.
You look like you're hanging.
Could we not respond via email to this by Wednesday or Thursday?
You need a consensus. You all have already put your ideas, but your ideas are similar. Some may be different, so there would need to be some discussion of those items to see what you would like to have included in the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan as it pertains to each of these areas, each of these goal areas or strategies.
Is your statement, each member of council respond to the text box?
Yes.
And kind of do a quick,
Yes.
I like this, I don't like that type thing?
Yes.
So narrow it down.
Yeah.
We're kind of getting it, or
To
like
to our own
Or no?
It'd be
That's
two.
not what I hear per se.
In other words, I'd take the first one, partner with Suffolk, blah, 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 and go,
Respond to everyone's.
yeah, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no.
All right,
He wants to condense them
But,
and make
yeah.
them one,
Yeah.
one
Statement
voice for each box.
from council.
Yeah.
So we can write on this document, scan it back.
Now that's,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
why don't we do that? Why don't we take this paper document and as simple as yes, no, maybe, and get that back to Deborah. And you can either PDF it to Deborah or give her a paper copy, and you'll get it to the city manager. Is that a good plan?
But like in 48 hours,
And
not
then,
not a week.
And then from there, Mayor, members of council, you are asking staff to come up with what your statement will be for council on each of the items? One consensus statement? That's, I mean, one for each.
All we really need is you to go back through there, if you don't have any heartburn with anything that anyone had submitted, to say,
Put them all in
all
there.
fine.
Or
If you have concerns, that's when we're gonna need to get some consensus.
It's a way of starting the conversation without spending a lot of time on it tonight. If we did 3 minutes per box, that's an hour
Right.
tonight.
Yeah.
Does council want to spend that much time per box, or would you rather take this home and...
Rather study it a little bit.
Okay. And then, what I see, using the two concepts that have been said, is that you would take our response and somehow do a matrix. If everybody said, yeah, that first box is terrific, then we move on.
We certainly can do that.
Okay.
We'll go through and summarize
It's a
what
way
you
of starting the conversation.
Yeah, and then you send it back to us, and we go, oh,
I know this is about the third time that we've seen this.
Yeah.
And that's, these boxes, and, when, certain areas, I made comments and certain ones I didn't, if I didn't have something to put in. I thought that when we were filling that information out, it was just going back to the group that was doing this. I didn't know that we would have to come back and do a consensus on each person's suggestion. I thought it was more of a suggestion to the team. So basically you're saying we need to go to each bullet point
No.
and more or less have a consensus on it?
No.
I'll describe it from my perspective. These are items submitted by council as a group, and so I don't want to leave it to the staff or to our consultants to pick and choose. We like this one maybe doesn't fit properly. This is really council's additions to what the community, what you see else in the document, that is community driven. It is through this whole process we've been working on.
it's not going to say Councilwoman Lucas
No.
Burke
No.
or
No.
Councilman.
No, it will
won't
not
be no
show it.
name.
It'll be, in fact, they'll just be rolled into the document. You won't even know where they came from by the time we're done. They'll just be added. I think we're not going to be highlighting council's already checked the box on this one. We're just trying to get those. These are additional strategies council members suggested they'd like to see to what had already been developed. And so once we get a clear picture of that, we'll just, add those appropriately into the document.
But you as the experts, we as council members put in what our emotional feeling was, at least it was for me at least. But, I won't be offended if you say that Ferris wheel don't fit in there with this, whatever it is. So
I understand, and we certainly understand that. Just like we did again with the community, what the language you see in here has been written into appropriate concepts. We're not just verbatim going to say, because I know a lot of you are speaking, and we can certainly see that. Thoughts you have, things off the top of your head, something you've been thinking about. Don't worry about the specifics of the language. We will clean that up.
So after we do that exercise, are we going to meet and come to a consensus over what that box should contain?
It won't be a box. The final
Right.
product will not be a
The
box.
next time, if you do it this way, we'll have to try to communicate. What we would propose to do is write that back in the document, and potentially the next time you see it is when it comes through for
The final
adoption.
draft.
Well, I'm not saying a literal box, but when we get back together, everyone will have either additions to the box or something they don't want there, so we need to come to a consensus.
So
What
Mr.
that is.
So Mr. Moody
What's it
wants it to
needed
come
by?
back.
When does he need this by?
We
Let's
needed
say
it.
Thursday.
That would be great.
Yeah, you said Wednesday, but listen,
Let me ask, will Monday be too late?
Monday of next week?
Yeah.
No, we just would need to get the council input. We've got everything else. So if Monday, that gives you the week.
Is that better for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what Miss?
Hold on.
Okay.
Nate's got a question.
Question, you know, my first thought of this is, odds are I'm not going to be any opposition to what any of my colleagues had made a suggestion. These are just suggestions. And that's the thing, you know, they were just suggestions of individuals. You know, it wasn't a consensus by council, so it's not a council directive. So, I mean, I don't think I'd be in opposition to any suggestion that anybody at this table made. So, you know, do we really need to review it, or can you, I don't know what the best answer is. Because it's just suggestions. It's not, it wasn't a vote to put it in there. It's kind of like the citizens. It was just adding ideas.
But the citizens in the summits or meetings that we had an opportunity to discuss with other citizens their perspectives, their thoughts that comprised their bullets. And they came to what is now the citizen input. So that's what we are asking, and Mr. Moody is saying that you all look at it, but you've got to come back and talk about what you all want to include.
I understand what the citizens did, but who condensed that, and did you keep all of their bullet points, or who was the arbitrator?
Well, again, process-wise, like you do in any plan, we've gone through the meetings with the community, with the staff, with our consultants, and then we've gone through and taking, from what we've received from them, we've condensed it down, and then we've taken it back out
to them.
to the community.
Okay, staff has condensed it.
The staff and the consultant team, yes.
But it went back out to the community.
So why can't they do that to ours? And then we can look at the document, and if we got a problem with it from there,
State your suggestion again.
In other words, it's a citizen document. Citizens came up with suggestions, their bullet points. It went to staff. Staff and the consultant condensed it and decided what to keep, what in each of the areas. So why can't they do that with ours collectively? Then let us look at the document one last time and voice our support or alterations to it from that point.
All right,
I'm all right with that. I think that's something what Councilman Clark said.
Okay, let's hear from other folks. Ray?
I don't know what to say.
I think everybody made some good comments, and some of them look like we were saying some of the same things. So if we can just remove where the redundancy is.
And if you would like for us to take this and rewrite it and put it back into the format, we'd be more than willing to do that.
I'm fine with that.
And I'm fine, because like I said, I don't oppose to
We're
what
not
anybody
trying to put you into some sort of we'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're the professionals at doing this.
All right. Once it's condensed and rewritten, council, you'd like to see it before it goes to the final document?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because ultimately we'll vote on it. And so
You're going to vote on the book? Yeah.
Can I add one more thing? And I was speaking to yes, please,
roller
this is important.
coaster.
It's important. No, a roller coaster. Yeah, I'm kidding her. But anyway, speaking to a citizen, I don't know where it might go in there, but someone was speaking about the way we communicate as far as city council and school board, and I was thinking maybe a retreat somewhere that we come together. We had a very nice retreat with economic development, and thought that if we had one with the school board and city council, and just kind of come into a room on a Saturday like we did with the box lunch and kind of talk, that might improve our image and improve our communication and whatever those old myths and things that's been before I was here, so I don't know where it goes in here, but
probably not in here, because this is the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Right,
and
but it's not for the
let's talk about that outside of the comprehensive plan.
Okay. All right. We have the direction, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, so we'll move forward and get it back to you in a timely manner. Okay. All right. The next presentation is an update on the Crawford Gateway Revitalization Strategy, which began February 3rd of 2017.
Good evening. So as Dr. Patton mentioned, the Crawford Gateway Revitalization Strategy is basically a strategy that's looking at those areas downtown where we have a municipal presence that are ripe for redevelopment opportunity. At your retreat and then following at a public meeting, we presented those to the citizens and agreed to move forward with 5 projects. And so this is an update on those 5 projects. So the first project is the Stormwater Park at the Civic Center lot. The Stormwater Park will provide a destination for downtown residents, provide stormwater management for future development, and it's supported by the comprehensive plan. We have a current task order with WSP for just under $83,000, which is less than the estimate of $150,000. Their task order also includes grant applications for continued efforts. So far to date, we've completed a topographic survey, analysis of the contributing drainage area, a preliminary assessment of stormwater management potential, and we have 5 potential concepts that are going to be turned into 3 renderings. Completion of this project is anticipated at the end of May. I'll take questions after each project just in case you want to ask a specific question.
And that's May 2018.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So the second project is the space needs assessment for the future City Hall. The relocation of City Hall moves municipal government off of the waterfront and provides access to valuable property for redevelopment. Clark Nexon has a task order for this project, just under $40,000. The estimate that we had given to you was $75,000. To date, they've performed the initial interview with the city manager, followed by interviews with all the department heads in City Hall, as well as the constitutional officers. Each department head and constitutional officer completed a questionnaire, and the consultant's doing some follow-up over this week. There's a planned tour with project personnel and the city manager of some modern office spaces. There's an initial report will be completed in June, with final completion anticipated this July.
Any questions on this?
Great.
And this, if you're looking at options where everything may not be in a city hall per se, is that correct?
Right.
Well, it's just a
Right now, we're just looking at city.
It's a programming document, so it tells you what each department needs as far as space, what do they have as far as any state requirements or federal requirements for their operation, things of that nature, and then
Yes.
what their future space is going to look like. So whether they're inside or outside, we know what their space looks like.
Let's talk louder.
So, the assessment of the Civic Center jail site. This study will provide an assessment of the existing site conditions, existing parking capacity, demand identification of shortfalls to include land use, infrastructure, environment, and economics. This task order is also with Clark Nexon. They have an optional task as part of this study based on what the results of some of those analyses are to take it one step further for an additional $8,300, but still it's below the estimate that we gave you of $75,000. The study will include financial planning and framework to establish a baseline. It'll include a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. It'll include a workshop with those participants from the consultant team and also with city staff, followed by a concept master plan that will involve a planning workshop this June that will be more than just the staff and the consultants, so get some community involvement in this. And this is anticipated completion at the end of August.
Questions on this? I have a question. What does this involve the concept of an alternative other than the regional jail?
It's gonna look
proposed to council
Possibly.
that build in the airspace above the parking lot at the courthouse, which would not be a regional jail.
Right. That decision in discussion has not been a part of this process.
It's
That
high
is
level. It's
something-
going to consider options. So, what happens if the jail stays there? How does that impact downtown? If you move the jail, where do you move it? Is it part of a regional jail? Is it a standalone jail? And then, what are development opportunities at that site once the
These
jail
are just
moves in. So
assessments.
it's very high level.
Right, at this point.
For that much money?
Yes.
You're getting all that? Okay.
Well,
This
there's
is-
a lot of research that's already been done over the past years of the jail and of the site, and so they're pulling in all that research, taking a fresh look at some of the things, and then taking that additional step of what's the financial condition and trends that are out there now, and coming up with that plan to present to you at the end.
Do we really want to study keeping the jail at that site?
Well, it tells you the impact of keeping it there. So it's basically the do nothing, the status quo. What's the result of doing nothing?
This is not a study this is an assessment of the Civic Center and the jail site. There will be several considerations in the work, in this assessment. In this assessment, yes, we've already said that the Civic Center, the Crawford Gateway revitalization is to clear the entire waterfront to develop it. But these are just the assessment pieces right here.
But why would we want to look at the option of keeping it where it is currently?
It's just the current baseline. It shows you where you are now as a frame of reference. And so every study has to start somewhere. You have out there now the jail, and so that's what it's going to tell you. So what money are you sinking into the site? What opportunities are you losing? That's that piece of it.
That sounds good, but it sounds like to me that the baseline could be someplace else.
Oh, yeah.
And
It is going to
it
be.
falls to me, and I'm throwing this out there for discussion.
Okay.
That there are two options. One is that you move it all to the regional jail, and at that it's either the facility is owned by the regional jail, or you get somehow a pod, a piece of real estate where the structure is done by Portsmouth. And there are financial consequences to that. And the other alternative is someplace else, like at the courthouse.
Connected to the courthouse.
Yeah. Why spend any time, which is just as important as money, studying the current jail? We've already decided as a group we want it off.
I mean, this is saying to me they're studying the site, not the jail. They're looking at uses of the site. And the present, and they compare it to the present and the future. What's going to happen to it, the site after it's gone? That's what I think. I see.
Yeah, I think we're getting into a separate conversation. I don't think this has anything to do with whether we go to regional jail or a separate jail. I think this is just a baseline. For example, when they presented it to us, this building and the building next door, the structural, what it is as it is now, and where we're going to go
to move it. We got to know it to move it.
That's what I see.
I'm not confused. I understood that. That's why I asked the question, because it wasn't on there. When are we going to have that discussion?
What are you saying, Mr.?
Let me try it a different way. So if the jail stays there for 5 years, 10 years, 15 before you move it, what are those impacts? How does that impact everything else that's going around? Because they're moving parts in and around that based on things that you're doing. So that's that baseline there that we're talking about by the jail still being there, that existing condition.
Bill.
Mayor, we always come to this point. The jail has got to be dealt with before anything in that area is marketable or of any value to us. Mm-hmm. So, we can't make an end run around that without knowing some options on what we're going to do.
Right.
Either in just a couple of options, either the regional jail or us build a jail.
We're going to get to that.
But it can't be, to the mayor's point, it can't be that the jail stays there and this is what you have then. Because what we have is what we've been having for the last 20 years. And that's a no-go.
Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, I think I understand the baseline issue you're talking about, but as far as the discussion they're having, the cost is $47,000 for all of this, and that's already included in the cost, which is significantly under the estimate. So I don't have a problem with what you're presenting because it's within the cost. If it's a time and cost issue, it's already under the estimate. If they're going to perform that, they're the professionals, then I'm in agreement with what's being presented.
Mayor, if we would look at what we're trying to do with the assessment, and the first statement up there says assessment of existing site conditions. We want to move the jail. We have talked about several places, but we still have to assess the current conditions of what we have over there. We've got a lot of studies that have been done 20 years or whatever ago, but what we're doing is assessing the current existing site conditions, existing parking capacity. We'll know all of that, which will be necessary for whomever comes and develops that site, to develop it to whatever the possibilities it could become.
I think you're talking about a time and cost issue, that why spend time on this and it's going to incur costs for doing it when we already know we want to move it. I hear what you're saying. My point is that it's 47,000. If they don't do it, how much less will it be off of 47,000?
A couple of thousand, maybe.
Yeah, it's not even worth the, if they're going to do it, it's not costing us.
If we're going to
it's just already under the
do an
estimate.
assessment of the property. It has to be assessed.
That's another whole conversation. I mean, this doesn't meet that.
I think you got it right.
No, that's the mayor was saying it's a time cost issue. It's minimal.
We got time to go into that part of it. That's not what this is accomplishing.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Until we decide what we want to do, where we want to locate the jail, I mean, this is just a nice study.
Right.
Yeah, that's all.
So when are we gonna
Well,
have that
information that
discussion?
we need to have
That's
to
all.
move it.
We've had lots of these similar studies. Everything from a blue ribbon commission to numerous studies, and they're still on the shelf gathering dust.
Yeah, but
because it comes back to the jail. Where are we going to get the money? What option are we going to pursue? And
that is,
So you said don't do
that's
this?
not the direction that we're going
That's the elephant in the room.
That's not the direction we're going in. You all have made it clear to us that you desire to develop the waterfront. That has been made clear at your retreat. These pieces of the Crawford Gateway violation can move us toward the development of the waterfront with the assessments of what we have, where we want to go, just what the existing conditions are of us getting there. We're moving in that direction.
Yeah,
Isn't it true? I'm sorry.
the previous studies have, the results of that are the new courthouse. A lot of the previous studies about the old courthouse, when we were forced to do that. So that's been done and accomplished. I think this is looking at it a different
Totally
way.
different. It's
I mean, we have to look at it this way because, again, I mean, to me, it's just plain is that.
All right. Well,
At another time, we need to talk about where we're going to build it.
Yeah.
And where, and not now.
Well, until we get that, nothing's going to be done on the waterfront.
We're going to get there, Mr. Moody.
Yeah.
We're going to get
All
there.
right, let me ask this question. The site, you look out the window and see what the site looks like today. It's got buildings on it, and it's got a parking garage. If we move the jail,
Parking.
we're going to demolish that stuff. You're going to have a different site. You're going to have a different set of conditions.
It's no
To me,
parking.
that's the baseline for the development at that point, not what it looks like today. Who cares what it, how tall the jail is and how big it is and whether or not it's got rust or anything in the building.
But what if you don't move? What if you don't move it today? What if you have to move it 5 years later, like in 10 years? And all of that impacts what happens over here. That's a whole different discussion.
Because it's going to take 5 or 6 or more years to move it.
Until it's moved, there will not be development anywhere near it.
That's true.
That's
And
We're trying to do the assessment,
That's a
Dr.
given.
Whittaker.
Round table going in circles.
That's true. I agree with that.
Just do that
All
first.
right,
Okay.
it sounds like there's a consensus to,
Keep
majority
going.
to
Keep going in the direction.
Yeah.
I just,
And we're-
my concern is that we're delaying
No,
making
we're
a
not.
decision about where to locate.
We're going to be coming back to you all, Mayor, in the next few months with those discussions, which includes, as someone, as Ms. Simmons mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the public safety, where we're going to be coming back with those discussions and considerations.
I say this for everybody's benefit. I don't have any preconceived ideas in my mind as to what is the best location.
Right.
I can hear, get the state pay 50% of the
For
capital
jail.
cost. That's a big incentive. But if you were going to operate the jail for 50 years, that's 50 years worth of operating and transportation expense that gets compressed and reduced if you don't have to travel as far.
Right.
And so somebody's got to study those trade-offs.
We are. Right.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the next project is the Crawford Street Corridor Study. This study will analyze the physical characteristics of the Crawford Corridor from the roundabout to Effingham Street. This task order is with Volkert. We've provided them with comments back on their draft proposal. We expect their final proposal back at the end of this week. This study will include an assessment of future and proposed traffic to include HRT, the location of utilities, coordination of other activities, compatibility with the comprehensive plan. It'll take a look at existing improved developments and projects within the corridor and existing planning and parking studies. The anticipated completion for this project is May 2019, so it's a year-long project. And the last project is the site selection and preliminary engineering for the public safety complex. The public safety complex is necessary to remove the most significant municipal presence from the most desirable redevelopment properties downtown. The estimate for this study is $125,000. The space needs, which was enacted prior to us coming to council, that 90% is performed by HBA. Staff have analyzed 11 potential sites for public safety complex. 3 sites removed due to constraints or other potential uses. The criteria for analysis were the size of the parcel, the existing zoning, floodplain, location and access, flooding and drainage, and other mitigating factors. Site selection is required to move forward to complete that space needs evaluation and then to get into the actual physical preliminary engineering.
I said we're going to be coming back within a month. I said this is where I said we'll be coming back with those sites within the mid part of next month for your consideration.
Does public safety include the sheriff's office anymore, or no, since they're in the courthouse?
Public safety is fire administration and police.
Police department. They do have one space in this building over here, the sheriff, but he is looking into considering where he could move that. It's like a records division. That's the only thing that's over there on the first floor right now.
So the sheriff thinks he can consolidate that into his current
He believes that he can consolidate. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, this concludes our presentations for the evening.
All right. Any other questions for either the city manager or the city engineer on this? Yes, sir.
I got one more thing, Dr. Whitaker.
The jail piece is,
I got one more.
the sheriff will be tied in with the jail piece, possibly.
Right. Well, at one time we talked about this, the sheriff was part of that, but that was before we put the sheriff in the courthouse and all that.
The sheriff is.
He should follow the jail.
I'm making the assumption that the sheriff is sitting at the table with these studies. He should be.
Absolutely.
He will be as we move forward. We're not talking right now about, this is just where we said the public safety, that was only fire and police, and they are at the table.
I would say that the conversation
Be
on
broad.
the jail.
Okay.
He
Oh,
ought to
yeah.
be- He ought
Yeah.
to be at the table. now.
Yes, definitely on the jail, definitely,
Even in,
the preliminary.
Even when you're talking land use, you
Yeah,
ought to be at the
right.
table.
We will.
I agree with that.
yeah,
We will. Okay. Mayor, I have one more thing I'd like to call to council's attention. I've completed my agenda, but I'd like to call this to your attention. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, in a routine yearly inspection by Span Systems of the canopy structure at the Pavilion on Thursday and Friday, May 3rd and 4th, the manufacturer found a deformity in the main support structure that holds the canopy. The engineering department immediately contacted Peony and Associates, an engineering firm, to assess the main support and overall structure for the pavilion. This morning, the head of the structural engineering for Peony flew into to Norfolk and to our city from Philadelphia to further assess the support structure at the pavilion. He concluded with the initial assessment of his engineering team that a potentially critical condition exists at the structure. He recommended that the tent canopy be removed along with reducing some of the tension in the cables to relieve the stress on the support. This would allow for the continued operation of the venue. This also would allow sufficient time to conduct a thorough analysis of the problem to determine the probable cause and most efficient and effective repair. This effort requires substantial communication and coordination with Span Systems. Span Systems is the company that placed the canopy on the pavilion. They're in the Northeast. Today, staff has communicated the desire to remove the tent canopy to Span Systems. They have indicated that their construction group would have to remove the tent canopy because of the specialized assembly. Their estimate is that it would take approximately 2 weeks to remove the tent canopy once on site. Span Systems, as of this evening, is currently working on a proposal to perform this work. It is likely that the existing tent canopy will not be removable once removed, reusable once removed. They have just called that to our attention. The canopy exists in 13 separate pieces. It's been up there 17 years. So they called that to our attention so that we will know that removing it, it may not be able to be replaced. It has to be examined and all of that, and studied and everything. This matter is a top priority, and we are working tirelessly to make sure that we move in an expeditious manner to ensure the entertainment system is impacted as least as possible.
Bill?
Okay, you say that the schedule can go on even though the canopy is going to be removed?
There are open venues all across the nation that do not have a canopy on them. In talking with our that don't have a top on them.
Yeah,
you know, they're outdoor venues. And we are talking with our contracted promoter. Has been in constant communication. And that was on late Friday when he said if we could get the top off, we can save the season. And we can. They're open venues all across. Well, that's open venues.
In insurance, what was the?
We are studying that right now through risk management. So the team met today, but right now we're not able to actually give an update on that. The team met with the attorneys today. Yes.
And where is the structural deficiency?
It's in the and Mr. Call it what it is, because I'll just say the pole, but tell him the right name.
It's the main support structure. You can actually, as you look out the window, it's the tallest structural member for the actual pavilion. So that's the main support. Keeps all the so the white piece that sticks up, the deformities in that main structure.
Pull that one up too, please. The entire tent, as Mr. Wright has described and laid out and looked at the plans, the entire canopy.
Dr. Patton.
What caused the deficiency?
Can I ask council to come over here? I think it's important enough that we look out the window so
Yes,
we can
sir.
all see.
Okay.
So, wait, Can you have the city engineer point out exactly what structure?
Let me.
It's better than PowerPoint.
So, I'm not blocking anybody's way. So the main structure is the, sorry, Dr. Wood. So the main structure is the tallest member that you see there. So you see all the cables coming off, detention cables coming off of the main structure. So those tension cables hold the tent in place and hold everything else in place. On the back side, which is closest to Ocean Marine, that's all in tension. On the near side, nearest to stage, is all in compression. The deficiency is on the compression side, so that's the fear. It's on the opposite side. Should something happen, throws everything out of balance, and you have a potential serious problem.
So the structural issue is in the tallest part that looks like a triangle.
Correct. It's in that part, but down lower.
Down the road. The white piece.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Where it's mounted?
No, it's above the foundation. It's in the first element up at a cross brace.
Who found the damage? How was it identified?
Span system, when they were doing their annual inspection in the tent, you have to go up in the boom. As they were going up of the boom, they actually, visually, I saw it. And you wouldn't normally look up. I always tell people, you know, anybody over 60, I don't know what your face looks like, so you have to actually look up.
Does it run, is the problem a horizontal problem or a vertical problem?
It's vertical. Yeah. And it's open about 5/8 to 3/4 of an inch, right through the middle. So, yes, sir.
I wonder what caused that, the tension or the
It's too early to say.
climate? We don't know
It's
yet.
too early to say.
Age.
Are other structures similar to this experiencing similar problems?
It's too, we can't say right now. We'll look into that as we're going through our analysis. It's still early on. We were there Thursday afternoon, Friday most of the day, and then part of the day today. So they have the original plans.
Because y'all talking.
Yeah, y'all, too much conversation over there that's not being picked up.
He's saying we're not capturing it on the video.
That's okay.
Okay.
It's important for us to see this. I mean, go ahead.
Continue says they have a copy of the original plans, the plans when they came in and did the retrofit, and all other documentation that would help them do their analysis. They've taken pictures or taken measurements. They'll probably be back out to tomorrow to do the same. So they've got to run computations and analysis and then talk to span systems, some additionally to figure out what they've done over the past however many years if they've done any adjustments. So it's a detailed process, but we're working diligently.
I was curious, any similar structures around the country where they say they are finding this at other locations, or is this just particularly Portsmouth?
I think it's too early right now.
okay.
We're gonna ask
But we
that
will look
question.
into that,
Yeah.
to that question, sir.
One last thing as we stand here. So the plan is to remove the fabric, remove the cables, and to take down the structural support.
To remove the fabric, definitely, if we can figure out a way to loosen it in the cables and leave them in place to take some of the stress off the support, we'll do that. If we have to take them down, we'll take them down. It's just going to be based on what those forces are once you take the tent down. The biggest thing, if you take the tent down, is the wind load. That's the biggest concern right now.
All right. Everybody would take their seat again.
I think I'll see this. I'm just going to wait till the
Well,
end.
thank you, Dr. Patton, for bringing this to our attention. Yes, yeah, Bill.
Question for Dr. Patton.
Yes, sir.
I think we should look at our agreement with the contractor, promoter, and see if there's any language in there, reference if the facility is not able to perform in its existing form, what it does to the agreement.
Mayor, members of council, the city attorney and his team are already working and looking at the agreement. And did you want to speak to anything? Okay. We're doing that right now. We've already started that.
So worst case is that, best case is that we'll have a completely outdoor venue.
Right.
The stage will be covered.
That's right.
If it doesn't rain, we can proceed with the concert series.
That's right.
Just like any other outdoor venue.
Wood trap, other outdoor. Mayor, members of council, we will keep you posted as we move expeditiously. We may have some update for you tomorrow evening.
All right. Any other questions, Bill? I mean, Ray?
Well, if you've ever been in there when it's been raining hard, there's only in the very center where the folks dry. If you're anywhere in the outer sections, you wet.
If it's
I've experienced that
flowing
firsthand.
and blowing rain.
So I'm saying that to say rain isn't that big of a factor because you get wet either way.
Anyway.
Okay.
In light of the information we just got, if it's got that large of a crack in that mast, is the whole facility being sealed shut as opposed to the inspectors and the people that are going to remove it?
The place has been signs have been put up in and around and no one is in there. And the staff who work there have been apprised, so it's not open to the public.
What about the events, emotion, and other things that's coming up?
The Friday of Umoja is out on the Festival Park. Totally. The Saturday of Umoja, which has been a concert, and that's the end of the month, and we're still waiting for Span Systems to say they may have it down by then. Today is the 7th, so we don't know.
Going forward, are they going to recommend what kind of canopy to put on it? Once it's corrected?
It's still a little too early to say. It's, from what we can see now, it's not necessarily an issue with the canopy, it's a support structure itself. And so we need to make a determination of why it happened, and then what's the best, most efficient way to repair it. And moving forward, that tent structure, is it going to contribute to any additional issues down the road? So all those questions we're looking to answer right now.
I was going to say to Mr. Smith that Umoja does have a concert scheduled for that, but that's the end of this month, and today is the 7th, so we're still, that concert may be based on what we get from Span Systems and their capabilities to get their team in here to remove the canopy. So we should know that within a day or so. Okay.
All right. No further business. Adjourn. Convene tomorrow at 5.
See you tomorrow.